In today's video, I wanted to talk about the Chicago Bulls, and so far in the 2021 and 22 season, the Bulls have been one of the best teams in the NBA, and they're currently sitting in the second place in the Eastern Conference, only a half game back of the #1 seed right now in the East, sitting with a record of 10-4, and really being one of the more impressive teams in the NBA so far this season on both ends of the floor. So today, like I said in the title, I'm going to be taking a deep dive into what has made this team so good so far this season. And as we know, in the offseason, this team made some big moves, going out and signing DeMar DeRozan, signing Lonzo Ball, and the trade deadline of the previous year going out and getting Nikola Vucevic, and also getting some good role players that complement the stars of their roster. But at the same time, a lot of people and fans around the league, including myself, had some doubts about this Bulls team going into the season because maybe their offense wouldn't flow that well because the players don't really fit together that well, and their defense still did not look that good going into the season. But the Bulls have proved both of those doubts wrong. So today I'm going to be talking about what has made them so good, and specifically what they have done to make sure that they are doing well in those categories that I mentioned on the defensive end of the floor, and how their offense fits well together. So with that being said, let's get started with the video. So I gotta start off by talking about this team's offense, and overall so far for the Bulls this season, they rank 11th in the NBA in offensive rating with a 108.9 offensive rating so far this year, and honestly I see this team going nowhere but up on the offensive side of the floor. I mean, this is, like I said, a relatively new team that has only played a grand total of 14 games together, so I think definitely they can develop some better chemistry than they already have right now. They already have great chemistry together for some reason. They're fitting together very well, and also Nikola Vucevic has obviously missed the last couple of games. He's out with COVID, and even before that he actually was having a slow start to the year. So once he comes back and also gets back to himself, this team's offense could be potentially a top 7 to top 5 offense in the league, in my opinion, in terms of offensive rating. Now, where do we start with this offense? I mean, honestly, in my opinion, we got to start with their transition game, because this is where they're at the most success offensively. And when we have a guy like Lonzo Ball who pushes the pace so much and can make full court passes very easily and just has such a high IQ for the game and is such a good playmaker, automatically you're going to have one of the best transition teams in the league. But even guys like Alex Caruso, Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, all of these guys are turning into very good playmakers and overall passers as well. All of them can handle the ball, push the pace up the floor, and this team overall is one of, if not the very best transition team in the NBA. In terms of transition points per game, they're only 9th in the league here, but they're #1 in field goal percentage in transition, 3rd in points per possession when it comes to transition, and overall in the league are 3rd in percentile in overall transition according to NBA.com, and they rank in the, according to this stat, they rank in the 93rd percentile in the league among all the other teams in transition. So this is definitely when the Bulls are at their best offensively, and they have, like I said, overall a fantastic transition offense. They're definitely at their best when they get out in transition, and I think they actually should try to get out and push the pace a little bit more here as the season goes on, and I think this will allow their offense to succeed even more. Now, when we talk about their half-court offense, like I talked about briefly early on in the video, going into the season, I thought that, especially in the first couple of games of the year, the Bulls would have some sort of a disorganized offense, because you look at a guy like DeMar DeRozan and how he's going to be playing alongside Zach LaVine. You look at these two players, both of these guys, I at least thought that they're going to have the ball in their hands a lot of the time, and they're more on-ball players and off-ball players and have very similar games. I mean, I really didn't think a guy like DeMar DeRozan, who constantly is operating in the mid-range area and creating his own shot off the dribble, would fit well with other star players like Zach LaVine, Nikola Vucevic, who gets into a ton of pick and pop action, and even Lonzo Ball, who often initiates the offense and has the ball in his hands a lot. But the Bulls have really found a way to compromise their offense and actually have Zach LaVine and DeMar take slightly more shots per game than they did in the previous season, and overall their offense functions so well. We look at specifically Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan, and both of these guys have just been absolutely insane on the offensive end so far this season. And something I like about both of these guys is how they're improving as playmakers, their passing is getting better, and they're able to play off ball, come off of screens, and hit shots that both of these players haven't really got a ton of experience doing this in their career so far. For example, coming off a screen on the perimeter and shooting threes, DeMar a lot of the time getting to his spots and shooting mid-range shots. And also for DeMar, we've seen throughout his career how he's had a lot of trouble developing a three-point shot, but this year he's actually already shooting 37% from three, which is a career high for him, on the third most attempts per game that he shot throughout his career, with around 2.5 three-point attempts per game. So his ability to come off the screens, hit threes, and also space the floor when he doesn't have the ball in his hands has been really key for this team as well. But like I mentioned, both of these guys are improving as playmakers, and you'll actually see a lot of the time how maybe one of them will create a shot for the other, and these guys can pass the ball to each other, and they actually fit well together offensively, despite maybe not thinking that going into this season. When we look at overall what they're doing, Zach LaVine so far this year is averaging 26 points per game, nearly shooting 49% from the field, 38% from three, and 89% from the line, and an overall 60% true shooting. So insane combination of volume scoring and efficiency here from LaVine, and still getting the amount of shots that he was last year as well. And DeMar so far is simply having a career year, putting up about 27 points per game, shooting a very impressive 51% from the field, still dominating in that mid-range area when he does have the ball in his hands. Like I mentioned, a career high 37% from three on 2.5 attempts per game, and also shooting 87% from the line. So both of these guys have been very impressed with him. Not to mention that Vucevic can be a very good pick and pop player when he's at his best, and he can also roll to the basket, get some offensive rebounds down there, play in the post, be a good playmaker, and he can run the pick and roll or pick and pop a lot with these guards and also guys like Lonzo Ball, Caruso. So he fits very, very well into this offensive system as well. And I touched on it a little bit, but the additions of Lonzo Ball and also Alex Caruso have been very good for this team just because of how good of offensive initiators they are and playmakers, and both of these guys are becoming better three-point shooters as well and can space the floor. Not to mention too that the role players coming off of the bench so far this year for the Bulls have played their roles very well. Guys like Ayo Dosunmu, Derrick Jones Jr., Tony Bradley, Javonte Green, Alize Johnson. Some of these guys don't even get that many minutes, but have still played their roles well, whether that's being an offensive rebounder and interior defender like Tony Bradley, whether that's being a guy like Derrick Jones who can sometimes control the ball up top, run the offense, it sometimes flows through him, and some of these guys can play off ball, cut to the basket, gets easy layups at times. And really all five of these guys, when watching the Bulls, I've been impressed with them and how they're playing their roles very well and helping this team's offense flow as well. So I've talked a lot about this team's offense and how good it's been so far this season, why it's been so good so far this year, and how it can get even better. But really the key to success so far this year has been their defense. And going into this season, I personally had a few doubts for this team on the defensive end of the floor, but they have absolutely proved me wrong, as they actually have the 5th best defensive rating in the NBA right now, with a 103 defensive rating, which is very impressive, of course. Now, so far this year, the Bulls also have the 11th best opponent's field goal percentage in the NBA, holding their opponents to shooting only 44% from the field so far this year, and I really think that mostly this is because of their elite perimeter defense. I mean, in terms of their personnel here, I think I was really forgetting just how good of defenders Lonzo Ball and Alex Caruso are, as when these guys are defending out on the perimeter, they are very, very hard to get by, and they're also very good off-ball defenders. I mean, they can always get their length in the way, get a lot of steals and deflections, and really affect teams driving towards the rim. And when we talk about their on-ball defense, I mean, either one of these two guys is always going to be defending the other team's best player every night. I mean, we look at a couple nights ago with Alex Caruso doing a fantastic job defending against Paul George. We saw a little bit earlier in the year Lonzo Ball do a really good job guarding Jason Tatum, and many other examples of both of these guys doing fantastic jobs against the other team's best player, defending on ball and then also defending off ball. And also, when we look at the other star players on the floor in Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, and Nikola Vucevic, all of these guys are actually playing their roles pretty well defensively, as I thought pretty much all three of these guys were under average defenders, but I think all of them are pretty much proving to be at least average defenders. I mean, especially Vucevic being the defensive anchor and big man for this team. I mean, last year he was definitely not a very good defender, especially when he was put into the pick and roll, but I think even he's improved a little bit so far this year. And also with him out, Tony Bradley has done a pretty good job stepping up defensively as well, and then some of their role players have done a pretty good job on the defensive end as well. And another thing I like about this defense is how they are switchable. So especially like I talked about, their two best perimeter defenders in Alex Caruso and Lonzo Ball. Both of these guys, like I said, they're long and they're definitely tall for guards, with Caruso standing at about 6'5" and Lonzo at about 6'6", and both of these guys can actually pretty much effectively guard almost anyone on the floor. I mean, if they have a really big dominant big man like Joel Embiid, for example, obviously they're not going to do very well in a situation like that, but we even saw the other night against the Clippers how a lot of the time the Bulls would actually go small here, and when defending the pick and roll, because you could think that the other team could just easily put them in a pick and roll, and without enough size there, they could easily score with a guy like Zubac rolling towards the rim. But Lonzo Ball, for example, was actually being the guy that would defend the big men, and he can actually do a pretty good job of that too. I mean, both him and Caruso are actually very good defenders in the post, and even a guy like DeMar DeRozan can be a pretty good post defender, and all of these guys are actually way better interior defenders than you might think. And then when they get Vucevic back, it'll be a little bit easier just because they have some size now. And while he's not a great interior defender and pick and roll defender overall, like I said, he is improving, and this will be good for them to add some size as well and a little bit more reliable rim protection at times. And like I said, I mentioned this early on too, Tony Bradley can actually be a pretty good defender as well. So, I mean, overall, the incredible defensive play of the Bulls, I wouldn't say it's exactly sustainable at a level of a defensive rating of 103 for the entire year, but this team's defense is definitely looking very promising, versatile, and especially dominant, with two very good perimeter and overall defenders in Lonzo Ball and Alex Caruso, and I definitely would not be surprised if they finish the year with a top 10 defensive rating across the NBA. So overall, the Bulls have looked very promising on both ends of the floor so far this season. They've definitely impressed me a lot with their team chemistry for such a new team. Their overall defense definitely, and like I said, they still have some room for improvement as guys start to come back, like Nikola Vucevic, hopefully coming back from COVID pretty soon. Kobe White just came back from injury. As he gets settled back into this rotation, he could definitely provide some very valuable minutes off of the bench at the point guard position for this team. And also Patrick Williams, hopefully coming back at some point. He can definitely be a very valuable asset for this team on the defensive end of the floor. And overall, I can't wait to keep seeing how entertaining and how dominant this Bulls team can be. And they might even end this season with a top 4 seed in the Eastern Conference, home court advantage in the first round, and who knows, maybe this team could potentially make a deep run in the playoffs, maybe get it to the second round or the East Finals, and even if they don't this season, they do have a bright future as well. So that's all I've got for you guys in terms of analysis in today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Definitely feel free to comment your thoughts down below on the Chicago Bulls so far this season, and I'll see you all next video.